everybody. Hope you're very well, and thank you to have me here today. I, Paz Levinson, I'm a member of the committee of the Association Argentina. And I'm very pleased to present two friends that has a lot of things in common. So both are very great friends. The name is Aldo. Both are owners of wine bars, and both are famous sommeliers, and both are doing Instagram Live. And I've been talking with both Aldos in Instagram Live, and I really, really enjoy it. So I will present first Aldo Graziani, member of our association, and he's sommelier and owner of Aldo's Vinoteca and Garage de Aldo. He also writes a wine guide of Argentinian wine with Valeria Mortara. He is a judge in the Decanter World Wine Awards, so we have the chance to see each other's when we taste together in the Decanter. And so Aldo Graziani will be the moderator of the talk, and that will be great. And Aldo Sohm is our guest from New York today. Aldo Sohm is the best sommelier in Austria for several years, 2002, 2003, 4, 6. He has moved to New York in 2004, so he's a long time living in New York. And then he became best sommelier of America as well, and best sommelier of the world. He is working in Le Bernardin since 2007. Fantastic restaurant in New York, and he has a partnership with Salto Glasses. So Aldo, this is for you. And he makes wine with legend Gerard Caher since 2008. So first release of the wine was 2009, but he makes Grüne Veltliner, which is amazing wines. We taste them also in Argentina. Thanks for the association. I remember some years ago. He is author of Wine Sample, the book, and for sure owner as well of Aldo Sohm Wine Bar. So I hope I didn't forget anything, and I will leave Aldo Graziani to start the chat and say hello to everybody, and thanks for hearing and to being in these master classes that we are doing with the Argentinian Association of Sommeliers that are great, and we have the possibility to join in wherever we are in the world.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for the introducing. I am very happy to be here with, I see a lot of faces of friends. I will introduce Aldo. We can start with a few questions. Aldo, dear, we have I think.
Hello, everybody. First,
many topics to speak to you tonight, but I think we have two big topics: Aldo Sohm, wine producer, and Aldo Sohm, working in the restaurant industry for many years in New York at Le Bernardin and Aldo Sohm Wine Bar. First, how did you decide to become a wine producer? Because it's not so normal. I think here we are 150 sommelier, and maybe you and other maybe are wine producer. But how did you decide this to become a wine producer? And you are for many as us, Grüne Veltliner is almost an exotic variety. We will love an introduction of this lovely variety by you.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason why I got into winemaking actually is based in Argentina. This was actually one of my first visits. I think that started in 2008. And I remember I was sitting at Achaval Ferrer and they asked me to criticize the wine. And to me, it was said, who am I? Why would I even start criticizing? I don't make nothing, right? I just taste and form an opinion, but that's about it. So, and I was very inspired. And then we went to Patagonia. And I remember we had a little canoe trip on the river, and I smelled the air. And I thought this would be perfect for Grüner Veltliner. But obviously, my Spanish is not very good. It goes to hola, ¿qué tal? And that's about when it starts getting bumpy. And I realized, first of all, getting money to Argentina is already a challenge. Mm-hmm. Then dealing with white money and black money, that's a thing which I could not compute, still cannot compute. So I came back to New York. I shared this, and I like also to be hands-on. Because as a sommelier, I realized, we become, working at Le Bernardin, I'm very exposed to the greatest wines in the world, and we drink those frequently. I'm very lucky in that. But the reality in life is, when I go to Burgundy or when I go to any wine region, winemakers receive me very, very warmly, but it's like visiting a large family. They line up the well-behaved children up in the front, and the naughty ones are locked away. The fact is, as a sommelier, you learn the most when you come to the barrels where something has gone wrong, or somebody tried something, and how does that taste? Because we, of course, shape opinions saying it has to be unfined, unsulfured, natural, with floor playing. But how does that taste in your context? And then Gerhard, a month after, came to New York randomly. And I was sitting for lunch in one of my favorite Thai restaurants in Queens, very casual. So, and I told him this idea that I want to start making wine. But he said, Argentina, it was, first of all, it was expensive to get a vineyard, and then the water rights on top of it, everything seemed to be complicated. And he said, why don't we do something together? So we said immediately, or we discussed immediately what we did not want to make, and we both were in line with that. And we wanted to have really fresh, focused wines. In 2008, it was very common in Austria, because as much as Grüner Veltliner is great to work with as a sommelier, because it's such a food-friendly grape. I used to always say at Le Bernardin when I started, when I'm stuck in a food and wine pairing, I use Grüner Veltliner. Sure enough, it will work. I have to admit, I had to correct this opinion a little bit. Champagne works better, but that's the only exception. But with Grüner Veltliner, you can maneuver through it. And on the other hand, I'm super friendly with many Burgundy winemakers, and I've worked also stages there where they let me go with them into the lab and we do the trials and finding sessions, and you learn so much. And it made me shift as a sommelier, because you look for different things and you taste all of a sudden slightly different. And I like complexity and I like to think, and it's very easy to criticize, but to make it is a whole different story, and it keeps you beautiful, humble. Mm-hmm. So.
And can we expose about the Grüner Veltliner, about the do you prepare something, images and but I think it's a good moment to start to talk about the variety.
The variety itself, I made it quick because I don't bore you with a long PowerPoint presentation. because I've learned one thing. Most people get always too stuck on all slides. I give you some imagery and gonna explain everything. Also, I don't know how many of you have been in Austria.
No, not many for sure.
Not
Not many of us.
I can share with you. Everybody sees it, right? We're on.
Yes.
And I go straight into it. The capital of Austria is Vienna. Vienna is a very, very small city. It's 1.8 million citizens. Austria has 8 million citizens. It's kind of in the heart of Europe. But one thing about Austria is they're very focused. There are similarities to a German mentality. It's just we Austrians like to laugh more. We like to have more fun. The Germans are more stiff or more rigid. But it's also a country which is very, very focused on working sustainable or working organically or biodynamically. Most of even regular farming, whether it's in vegetable, but also in wine, is based on that philosophy. It's very strong ingrained. It's often just not certified because it's just a regular living standard. So Austrians are very, very connected to their environment, and everything is pretty much spotless clean and very well in shape. So just to go into it, so we have here, up here, we will be in London, right? Here will be Paris, roughly. Vienna is right here. And as you see, this is quite interesting because in Austria, we shape pretty much everything. You have here the Alps, which is a major influencer, but they work a little differently than in Argentina. In Argentina, you want to be around the Andes. In Austria, it's slightly different. You want to be away from them because it's just the growing season is too short. If you go here, I'm from here, from Tyrol. You know, some hobby farmers farm grapes, but it's a wine which probably none of us is really getting super excited. It's an interesting experiment, but it's just, you know, the growing cycle is too short, too cold. Going further into it, you see everything is based pretty much in the eastern part. Here, you have from the north, cooling influence is very continental up here. If you go to the Burgenland, it's very Pannonian, Hungarian, also very continental. And down here in Styria, it's very maritime. What's also fascinating is Austria is, or Vienna is one of the few capitals in the world which has a significant wine growing. I mean, we have over 700 hectares. Now, Haas will, of course, correct me very quickly. Paris has also one vineyard, but yeah, but it's almost insignificant to make it really relevant. And I'm going to show you a photo about the kind of the size and how it's connected and even ingrained into Austrian and Viennese culture. So one part is also interesting. When we talk about Grüne Veltliner, you find it mainly here in Lower Austria, Niederösterreich. Nieder means lower, Österreich, Austria. Burgenland is more a red wine area, also very famous for sweet wine production. You find, however, in one little fraction, which I'm going to go closer into it, you find right now also, that's a little bit like the Walter Jarry of Austria. It's a really young, hot and up and coming area where especially young guys invest, is right here on the Leiterberg. Styria is very known for Welsh Riesling, which is known also as Riesling Italico, Chardonnay, which is called Morillon, and Sauvignon Blanc. Those kind of the main components. There's also a local specialty here of rosé, which is quite acidic. So I browse straight through it. This is me and Gerhard barrel tasting. You know, for me, it's often very, very funny. Gerhard is quite a famed winemaker, but for sweet wine. The Kracher wine is often compared, you know, they work together with Alexander Lurselus from formerly Chateau Yquem, now from Chateau de Far. He works a lot with Egon Müller or Istvan Shepshi in Tokaj. And for us, it's very interesting because he does not have experience with Grüne Veltliner, especially not outside from the Burgenland. And it's always kind of, I push him to push certain boundaries. And in the 10 years we worked together, we weren't always the same opinion, but we never had an argument. And if this is one of our ground rules, if we both are not the same opinion, then it's the other one's responsibility to bring a good enough argument. And then we move forward. Right now, I'm pushing him on one topic very, very hard. That's why I'm flying over next week. So we'll see how that goes. And then next week, I do a lot of barrel sample trials, because I have a couple samples of unfined, unsulfured Grüner Veltliner, and I can't wait to taste it. So going into that topic. So Vienna would be here. This is the Weinviertel, which is one of the largest growing areas. And while most of people know from Austria, they know the Wachau Valley, which is a part of the river Danube. You see it here, which is kind of a major influencer there. And it's one of the most traditional areas, super picturesque, very, very pretty, very steep vineyards. They had to terrace it. And soils are very different there. They call it, in Austria, they call it primary rock, which is gneiss. Also the Kremstal or the Kammtal would be very, very famous. The reason why Gerhard and I had zero interest to go there, because we were looking for old wine vineyards. And the Wachau is a region which has very low rainfall, 300 millimeters. That's almost comparable to if you go to the Tuscan shore, like to go to Bolgheri, you have about the same rainfall. And it's also very, very warm. And another problem often that Wachau has, and I'm going to show it to you later just for the ones who don't know, wines have often a tendency to pick up botrytis. And this is often a funny part. Of course, we get it sometimes in our vineyards too, botrytis, but for our pickers, Gerhard tells them always typically, you know, they're very selecting the best botrytis out of each cluster. When we harvest Grüner Veltliner, it's always, today we do the opposite. Everything but botrytis we leave out and cut out and clean out. So our vineyards, they come up from this area, from the Retzer area. Plus, we have another vineyard south of Vienna here, and I'm going to the next slide. So Vienna would be further up here, and this is the Leiterberg, which is influenced by the Lake Neusiedl. And it's quite a funny lake because it's the largest lake in Austria, but it's like a steppe. And I took a bunch of sommeliers with me to Austria, and I always do one thing. We go here first, then we go on a boat and cross over to the lake to go to Ilmitz, where Gerhard is from, on the other side. And I told them the lake, the deepest part is 2 meters deep, but you have waves of 1 meter, and it's windsurfing world championship area. So it's very windy there. Wow. And no one would believe it. It's quite interesting, the climate here. The Leiterberg goes up to 300 meters. That's for Argentina insignificant, but the Burgenland is a very flat area. And this is actually right now Sanki organ. We've tried the one, when I was down in Argentina, we tried the St. George. In Austria, we never knew the parent, both parents. We knew Traminer, the grape variety, was one of the parents. The second one we never knew. We found it out 5 years ago with a DNA profiling, and there's one vine left up here in the forest called Sanki organ, named after the village. And our vineyards are really right on top here. It's a very cool site on the top, and it's grown on calcareous fossil soil. So it's very, very similar to if you go to France, and you have to work as a result also very, very different. So just giving you a little impression, these are the vineyards up in the Weinviertel. Very, very old vines. They're 50-year-old, and it's a little underdeveloped area. Also, it was quite a struggle to change the farmers around, and rather going on mass production, which is very typical up there, because the Weinviertel is an area which produces a lot of base wine for sparkling wine. So we had to change that mindset completely. We missed a generational change, so we couldn't buy the land, so we had to rent it. rather than buying the grapes, so we could take control over it. This is the Sanki vineyard. Here would be the lake, and again, it's much more arid up there. It's surrounded by a forest, which in super dry years, like in 2012, had one thing as a result: the wild boar came out of the forest, and the weekend before we wanted to harvest and took the entire fruit out. That was a rather unpleasant experience. So that's kind of right now the hot spot of all kind of the young up and coming winemakers. It's Grüne Veltliner who taste different. And I often get this on where people say on the Sanki, that's not typical Grüne Veltliner. And my immediate question is, can you describe typical Grüne Veltliner? Of course, if you look for the Wachau Valley, where it's grown on gneiss, yeah, that's how it tastes. Here, it's grown on limestone. So if limestone and gneiss taste the same, we've done something wrong. So it takes a little time. It's also when you, so we balance that out. Also, this is an area where you have to work as a result very, very differently. If you would work the same way, like we work up in the Weinviertel, the wines would be way too reductive. We've done that on the very beginning. Wines took a long time. Today, they are absolutely phenomenal, but it took them 10 years. And Austrians are very impatient. They like to get their wines right away. In the beginning, they were really, really tight. So showing you quickly, here you see the limestone pebbles right in there. It's a very, very dry soil. So it's very easy to farm there in that part. Here you see the famous Wachau Valley, just to give you different, you see it's a very different thing. Everything is in terraces. This is part of Achleiten. This is the little town Weißenkirchen. Again, super, super picturesque. Little charming restaurants. You can, often winemakers take you up there. You can drink a glass of wine up there. Look down the river Danube, you just see a little bit of here. Then if you move a little, just about in Argentina, you work with miles or with kilometers? Kilometers, right? See, okay. If you move 3 kilometers further east, you come to this area. Here would be Dürnstein. This is Leuben, and you might have heard, some of you, of FX Pichler. That's the winery right here. So here, this is the Vineyard Schütt, which is the Knoll winery, super, super famous with, and here's Leubenberg. And here you see basically the river Danube coming this direction and going then down towards Vienna and crossing through. So the Danube takes basically the cold air away. Also in the summer, it cools it off a little bit. It's actually, if you're ever there, it's super beautiful to go on a boat. And then often winemakers do a vineyard tasting. So you taste each wine by passing by with the vineyard. It's actually quite interesting. Passe, did you do that? We have to fix that. No, okay, we have to fix that. This is the one problem, botrytis. I don't think you have a lot of botrytis in Argentina. This is already much too advanced for Grüne Veltliner, but sometimes certain winemakers play with that. Again, this is a too advanced stadium, but imagine there is only 10% or 15% of botrytis. It makes wines very, very powerful, very, very quickly. I mean, Romane Conti with the Morash, they played a long time with botrytis. They stopped this in recent years to work on clean. I think 14 was one of the last years they played with. It gives it a little extra power. The problem on Grüne Veltliner is a grape which gets ripe and mature very quickly, and the acidity gets lost as a result, much faster than on Chardonnay. And when they mature, it becomes almost a little bit like, it's a very top-heavy wine then, and it becomes very, very unctuous. So when they go into that level, I have a hard time. Also in New York, I've seen the experience. It's very enjoyable to have one glass of wine, but you keep nursing the bottle. You're not going to look for a second glass. And that's kind of the trend where we go away from that, kind of these 16% alcohol wines, and almost with very little acidity. We move away from that. We look for freshness. So that's how botrytis looks like. This is what Gerhard's specialty is more. In Gerhard, it's even more. And this starts beginning of September. I always go in the vineyard and try that. You obviously talk about inner beauty, not external beauty, because to eat this doesn't look very pleasant, but it's quite interesting because once you bite into that berry, it's really mushy. It's like a mousse. There's no more skin. There's no more crunch. But the crunch comes in sort of, the sugar is very concentrated, but the acidity is also very concentrated. So it's a real explosion on your palate. So it's quite fascinating to try that. But again, it's a tricky balancing act. Here you go to Vienna. This is a very classic photo of, we call it Heuriger. One of our kings, one of our emperors in Vienna released or allowed winemakers to sell their current wine or their young wine. So it's very common to sit up in the vineyards, order some cold cuts, that's traditional, and drink the new wine. And this, you see, this is up in the Nussberg, one of the best vineyards in Vienna, and you look down to the city. And obviously, in Viennese culture and history, most of Viennese back in the 1700s, 1600s, they owned farmland, and on the weekend they ventured there and made their own wine. Obviously, in today's world, things changed and things became much more professional. But wine is really ingrained in Viennese culture. So that's a typical site. Also quite fascinating when you do tastings up there, and then the moon comes up and then the moon rises up there. It's typically always everyone stops focusing on wine and just looks at the Mother Nature and how spectacular the view is then. So there's one region I pointed it out quickly, which is just slightly northeast of the Wachau. This is probably another super famous vineyard in Austria, which is Heiligenstein, which moved actually in the Middle Age. It was called Höllenstein, Hellstone, and it moved then to Heiligenstein, meaning the saint. So this is where winemakers such as Bründelmeier or Schloss Gobelsburg, they're very dominant there. Also, we couldn't forget Hirsch. So that's another really, really interesting wine area. Just you drive about 20 minutes from the Wachau Valley there. And this is my presentation on Grüne Veltliner, so very sharp.
Okay, perfect, amazing presentation. I have a few questions from the people. I am now with my cell phone because I turned off the internet here in the restaurant. The question is, between the Gruner from the Niederösterreich and the Gruner from Burgenland, which do you prefer and why? And also, what is your opinion from the Panobile group?
Those are a couple of questions in one question. I like them both. It's kind of, let me rephrase this question a little bit. Which Malbec do you like, from Mendoza, or you like them from Patagonia? They both have their charm. They both have their kind of right and place. They're just very different. While of course, if you go to Lower Austria, to Niederösterreich, of course, it's very traditional there. People know it already. For a sommelier to sell, it's very easy. It's very straightforward. From the Burgenland, that's something new. They have a different dynamic. You have to work also different. The flavor profile is different. So I wouldn't, prefer one over the other. They're just aromatically slightly different. And from the mineral component, also slightly different. So the Panobile group itself, there's some really interesting winemakers there. I think the ideology is also very, very strong there. And I see two Aldos now, two Grazianis.
Yes.
So Did I respond to that question? We can't hear you anymore, Aldo.
We are trying to fix the there.
Okay, here I am again. I am looking for the other question. I forget because I have a new chat. If Mati, you have the question before of the latest. Or Monica? Yes. If Aldo Sohm had to talk about what are the main style of Grüner in terms of aromas and flavors, what typical styles do you think the variety can adopt depending on the soil or the winemaking or the winemaking process?
What's typical? If you go for what I find on Grüner Veltliner very distinct, if I get it blind, is one thing. I find a little bit like cotton candy. You know this?
Cotton candy.
Cotton candy. Often when you have these pickled vegetables, you find this also very distinct. And I find often a little bit like when you have a yellow apple in those kind of components, but it's very clean. Depending on where you go and how they farm and how they produce it, of course, you get a little spice. Typically, when you read Grüner Veltliner descriptors, they always talk about white pepper.
Mm-hmm.
I think climate change almost got rid of that because the sugar levels come up too high and it loses a little bit that white pepper. You read it all over. You don't find it that often anymore. And then you find, to me, a little bit citrusy components. Now, Grüner Veltliner is fascinating in terms of the grape because it makes from very entry-level, crisp, easy-drinking wines to medium-bodied and then to full-bodied when you go, for instance, to the Wachau Valley, to Smaragd levels. Then it makes it really powerful wines. So, of course, they're much richer, they're much more concentrated. You get almost a honeyish component there. So it's a variety which can take the whole spectrum. The newest phenomenon, which we see since about 10 years in Austria, and especially in the Wachau Valley, when you go in vineyards like Achleiten, you have Riesling and you have Grüner Veltliner in both vineyards. Mm-hmm. Or it's more, let me put it different. If you go, for instance, into Kellerberg, where FX Bichler is very strong, after a couple of years, if you get this wine blind, it will be very challenging to make out the Grüner Veltliner from a Riesling. And I know that sounds insane, but the vineyard almost takes over kind of its dynamic and its expression. I've tried this with many winemakers, and at first I had to scratch my head because I thought always, if you cannot make out if you cannot detect the Riesling, you have to stop working as a sommelier. Mm-hmm. There you bite out your teeth. So it's quite fast. And I know, and this might sound absolutely strange, but it's really something which we see more and more.
Okay, when a few months ago, when you were here and we had the opportunity to taste your different wines, we could taste the crispy entry level and the more complex type of wine as the Grüner Veltliner can give. Can you talk about your wines and what is your work for your wines? Are you a winemaker? Do you think you are a winemaker, or you work with you work more in other part of the process?
mean, I have no illusion. Gerhard is the winemaker. There's no doubt about it. I mean, look, and I'm very honest there. Look, my main job is Le Bernardin and Aldo Sohm Wine Bar. I fly probably three. I mean, this year is different for a number of reasons,
Yeah,
but
we know.
typically I'm 4 or 5 times over in Austria. Sometimes I just fly there for 2 days. FedEx does the rest. In America, it's a little difficult because you cannot ship alcohol. So I discovered this. We ship it as shampoo samples. I mean, declared.
Yes.
And it goes through. There's no labels on the bottles, have only numbers. So FedEx does typically the rest. But now with COVID-19, I had also a package coming and it was returned. So it's a headache right now. But that's why I'm going over next week. But no, I come often with the crazy ideas and I push Gerhard really hard. And of course I go into the vineyards, but you know, the reality is, and I've learned this very, very in the first year immediately. While I think sommelier educations, you know, are really, really good, but when you talk on farming, you know, which clone, how do you do this? How do you do that? You realize as a sommelier, you don't know nothing.
Yes.
And
It's
that
one
is
part of the process, as you are not it's not your job in general.
no, but then that's not the worst. The worst was back in the day still to come. When, and this is a true story. One of Gerhard's good friends, he's also a winemaker, came and visited and said, these sommeliers, they're all idiots, and all the journalists are idiots too, because they're tasting a red grape variety in Austria called Zweigelt, which is a very, very, it's a thin skin, very juicy, very easy to drink wines. And I said, look, they have tasting panels, and all what these wines are based on, they just give it a little residual sugar and some tannin powder. So they have all of a sudden, right? See this almost like a Beaujolais type, or like a Bonarda in that kind of sense, type of wine. But just all of a sudden it tastes like a Malbec, because you gave it residual sugar and you gave it tannin powder, and all of a sudden it blossoms up. So I said, and they're tasting these wines and they're rating these high numbers. I said, this wine is just produced like that, and these idiots cannot try it, cannot detect it. And I said, I don't want to embarrass myself, but I wouldn't know this either. Yeah. And he said, okay, come over to the winery. I have a couple barrels set up, because in Austria we have a very stiff wine law. I said, I have 6 sealed barrels for the cellar inspector, because they come and inspect the winery. How much wine do you have? And it's because of taxations. And so I tried the powder, and then we tasted it in ascending sugar levels, what it did on the wine. And it was just fascinating. And it's just, now I know what to look for, because you wouldn't know what to look for, right? So I get to see this right now. And that's kind of the eye opener, where I get to learn all the time. That's kind of the greatness, you know, of, you know, working so close with a winemaker. Look, also another thing, as a sommelier, I thought fining and filtering is not necessary. And I was fortunate enough to listen to Olivier St. Humbrecht, who is a master of wine from the St. Humbrecht. And I love to listen to him, because he's like a walking encyclopedia. I see Paz nodding her head. I mean, he's absolutely fantastic. So he said, fining is not necessary, because you just need to extend the élevage a little bit, and the bad protein will fall out on its own. And so I asked him, so how long do you extend? I said, half a year is fine. And I knew in our 2009 vintage, our philosophy was we extend the élevage for much longer. So we had it over 18 months. And so I thought, totally fine. So we made a launch party. Back in the day, I didn't have Aldo Sohm Wine Bar, and I invited a couple of friends. I opened the case, was very excited to taste the new wine. And I lifted up the bottle, and I saw it almost looked like milk. And yeah, my heart kind of crunched. Then I had a lot of French, I have French chef when he says, "Oh, you have a very funny looking wine." And it was like my stomach really just crunched. The wine tasted delicious, but so I called Gerhard, said, "The wine is cloudy." And he says, no, it's only one bottle. I said, "No, it's the entire case." And then I said, "At the winery, it's clear." And I said, "Just put it in the car and drive around for a day. With the heat, you'll see it will fall out." And sure enough, it did. Interesting enough, and see, this is where, if you have an open mind and are curious, and I was so lucky. I was traveling to Burgundy the year after, and Jean-Marc Rouleau invited me to go to to the lab in Bonn to adjust the fining agents. And he said, in winemaking, there is no such thing as a secret. It's either people tell you or they don't, or they know or they don't. There's no such thing. I said, look, in fining, we want to do one thing. We can give that wine a little bit more precision by fining. The trick is, by doing that, if you overdo it, you take him character away. So we're trying to find. Okay, so we're trying to find this healthy balance of to get to that right level, and the wine is still stable. And it was one of the craziest tastings, because if not everybody is the same opinion on the table, you do it all over again until you come to the same opinion. So after this fining session, I called Gerhard immediately and I said, "We gotta find." And Gerhard was angry. He was upset. He said, "Over my dead body, I will not find. I have never done this. I will never do it." Da, 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 da. And I said, "Just tell me when you finished." And so they said, "I'm finished." I said, "Now go over, try it. I will call in 3 hours. It's probably how long it's going to take. Taste it. And then you still can tell me over your dead body." That's the great, see, but again, you need to know this. As a sommelier, you tell a very accomplished winemaker, you got to do that. So you have to have a very good partner in order to accept that. And we've done trials with it. What we didn't know back then was, and again, this is the thing for me where I come as a winemaker in a sense where Gerhard did not have any experience in Lower Austria, nor did I. So for us, the sky was the limit. We could do everything what we wanted. If we would have had a family winery with I think like a Jean-Louis Chave with 1,000 years of history, the family cemented everything in. There's for you not much wiggle room for you to work with. We didn't have that. Looking back 10 years after, experience is not a bad thing.
It's not.
But it's interesting that you can taste and can trial. So ever since we find to a way, but again, I took this as a learning lesson from Jean-Marc, and then a couple of years after, I worked harvest with him in 2015, and I every day I didn't even know how much more I could learn. But again, I see them from Burgundy, and of course, we don't want to make Grüner Veltliner who tastes like Burgundy, but we I looked what he does, and we tried to implement certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them worked, some of them didn't.
Yes.
It was very fascinating, but from the get-go, what Gerhard and I did, we looked more for freshness rather than for alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, I don't know how many of you have tasted Puligny-Montrachet or even Montrachet. Those wines, they are very powerful, but they have freshness and cut.
Mm-hmm.
Except 2003. That tastes like California Chardonnay, but that's a different story.
Okay. We can talk now about, sorry, chicos, yo como me desconecté varias veces, hay preguntas que no tengo. Si me las quiere mandar de vuelta, si hubo preguntas, las hago. Si no, sigo con los tópicos. We can talk about your work at La Bernardin. You are
Argentina.
wow, chakra. You visit Piero this year, no?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a very different Piero. Piero, New York Piero is very different than Argentina Piero.
Yes, there are two Pieros.
Totally different people.
Yes, it's a Piero farmer and a Piero New Yorker.
Piero in Argentina is quite a locura.
And in New York, no?
No, in New York it's very tranquilo, very chill.
Wow. Okay.
Argentina is 100% the opposite.
He's an Argentinian when he's here.
I don't think so. He's very Italian to me. This is
Italian.
very...
Okay. I was very surprised at La Bernardin when I was there last year, because of the service, because of your team, because of, it's not. I have many questions. For example, the first question is, you are more than 15 years doing service there, and when I see you there, when people can see you there at the saloon in the middle of the night, we can see a happy guy who loves his work, and how you can maintain the love for the service for too many years, because it's a hard work, and we are not so young. You are not so young. We are not 30, but I saw you there, and I saw a happy guy, and tell us about your job at La Bernardin.
First of all, we didn't know you were coming.
Sorry?
First of all, we didn't know you were coming. I spotted your name.
Yes.
And you went first to the wine bar, and I warned them. I said, listen, this is just in case this is a guy like this comes in, and give me a call.
Yes, because I didn't call you to go there.
Nope. And, no, I mean, look, I love my job. I love the stress. I love the pressure, and I love the competition. Did I step outside of this industry to discover something new? Absolutely. And it was boring. I missed the people. I've done that. Look, I give you the perfect, this is now 25 years ago. When I lived in Austria still, work was seasonal there. So in between, I had a friend who worked in construction who was short on hand. So I started helping him. And I thought, this is amazing. You getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning, this was not so good. But by 5 o'clock, you finished. Saturday, Sunday off, all the holidays off. I said, this is great. If work was finished today, good. If it was finished tomorrow, good too. But then after 2 months, I thought, this is boring. What am I doing? What I can do best, I don't do. I miss the people. I just miss the craziness a little bit to maneuver through. And I was just bored. And you do not want to be around me when I'm bored. I cannot stand that. And I was never good at easy jobs either. I want to push, I want to think through, I want to have complications. So that's the one part. The second part is, look, with working with Eric is obviously he's a chef and he's a French chef. It's very difficult in one sense, but it's very easy in one thing, because as a sommelier, you need an orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
People don't just come for wine. People come for food as well. And it's the entire experience. One cannot sustain the other. So you have to work together. So he's my partner, kind of, in that sense. and he delivers a very strong product. For us, the people complain about the food is very, very rare. And then I managed, you know, because I'm so long there, I managed to bring up a very, very strong team, a very diverse team. And it's great. For me, nothing is more enjoyable when you see young talent. At first, you know, they come. I asked them in an interview, you know, all I look for, to be very honest, when we interview people is how passionate are they? I asked them wine questions, of course, and asked them, I just want to see how quickly passionate are they getting? Mm-hmm. How quickly can I lighten up the fire in their eyes? Mm-hmm. And because I asked them, what are you drinking on the weekend? Or I asked them trick questions also, you know, can you name me a couple of Grand Cru vineyards in Meursault? And I just want to see, how do they react? Because the thing is, what I look for is, if you come to Le Bernardin, like you had, and you have a tasting menu with 8 courses of wine pairing, me as a client, I go in the client's position, can I listen to this person 8 times? That's the key. Yeah. Look, sometimes I make fun of that. Sometimes, you know, we hire young talent. They're greener than the dollar bill. But that's, to me, not important. To me, they have to be passionate. The knowledge, I can learn them. You know, we start at the wine bar. They get really hungry because they see the best ones we promote over to Le Bernardin. And like that, it's kind of, where there's a crazy dynamic then. And they really push very hard. They taste with each other. They study with each other. And they really push, because obviously that's a huge, coming from a wine bar going into a 3 Michelin star restaurant. And especially Le Bernardin is kind of a monster, because the speed is so high. So both teams start working together with each other. And I find this enjoyable. Of course there are problems, but problems are here to fix. And of course, sometimes I'm unhappy, but then I go on my bicycle and go cycling for a little bit, and then I'm happy again.
How many sommeliers do you work with you?
Thank you for pointing this out, because in America, always people say, I want to work for you. And in every interview, no, and I say, actually, no one works for me. You work with me and I work with you. It's a key, it's an attitude set, right? You don't work for me. Because look, I serve also. I do the wine pairings also.
I know.
I find this great. Listen, hard work. I mean, I don't think sommeliers have a hard work. For us, it's actually very easy. If I look at a wine salesperson, that is hard work, because you go to a client who doesn't want anything from you. I mean, how many people knock on Pas's door every day who want to sell wine? And you cannot say yes to everybody. That's impossible. So for us, it's very easy. When Aldo comes, you know, sits down on a table, he wants something from me. I just have to give him whatever he wants. That's it. And to me, when you enjoy work, you really don't work. It becomes a game. And yeah, I have the best job.
Okay, I have questions from the people. New York City is for tendencies in wine. Norway, Burgundy, Jura, Rhone, Piedmont are trendy. What other regions or varieties do you think will be rising stars in the next few years?
Oof. I mean, Burgundy, look, Burgundy has obviously the status, has the iconic component. You see also this on the price developments. I mean, France is France for a reason, because they have the history behind. And look, I mean, they make incredible wine as an overall. Of course, they make also, some of them are uninteresting wines. Fine, but this is in everything, right? Argentina has some really great wine and some of them are less interesting. Okay, fine. We need both. Not everyone can drink Romane Conti because there's not enough weight. I think what I see right now is everyone is always looking for a trend and how to find the next trend. The reality is when you look, there's so many countries right now. When you look, all these young winemakers, they went over to Spain, they went to Italy, they went to France, did internships there, took their knowledge and implemented it back. I find Chile, Argentina very interesting. Because also, I mean, look, when I visited you down in Argentina, we tasted wines with floor, and I thought immediately, interesting. Someone must have worked here with Raúl Pérez. A huge Spanish influence there, or I found that fascinating. Also, when you look at the price points, they're very attractive, right? So I think the young consumer also in New York, they question things much more smartly. So I think you can look all over. I think if you go to Germany, try the Pinot Noirs, I mean Spätburgunder, how they call it there, try them there. It's from the terroir and from the spice very different. Austria is always a deal still because Austria and Germany has these problems because you cannot read the label. Just try to read from Egon Müller, Schatzhofberger, Riesling, maybe add Trockenbrenner's on top of it and your head starts spinning. And with that language, with that handwriting on top of it, nobody can read that, especially not in New York. Or read from Lauer a label. It's impossible to, I mean, I can read it, but Americans can't read it. So that's always a problem, but the wines are really good. I think you have to keep on Spain, I think is on fire right now. Portugal is coming, but Portugal is a little weird because I keep saying this for 20 years. It's a sleeping giant, and but hopefully finally they're coming.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good happenings. Even when you go to Australia, we just don't get that. I mean, we know Australia from Yellowtail and from Penfolds, but we just, there's a lot of boutique, small, and people experimenting. There's a ton of interesting wines there. You don't have to go that far. Even go to Bordeaux, which is a funny, you know, Bordeaux has this kind of, to me, it's a classic traditional area which has to be in every wine list. Now look, yes, those iconic wines are often made in a very high case number. So, and I have to admit, it's actually a funny story, and I'll share it with you because I was on a Bordeaux trip 2 years ago. For a week, I was there and I spent with all major chateaux, but I put also my foot down and I said, I want to visit also the small ones on the right bank. And I had to fight for it at first because in France, everything is very political and they push you to the first ones who obviously give the most money. But I said, I want to go to the small ones. This is non-negotiable. One day, this is absolutely the key. And I spoke with a master of wine who set those things up. And funny enough, on the last day, I went to a very prominent winery and I was a little tired. And they start talking, you know, we're looking very strong towards Burgundy right now to keep up with the price development, you know, and looking into that. And I was thinking loud, you know, thinking loud is never typically a good thing. So and I said, why would you do that? Nah, because with the price, because look, I lost count after 300 barrels in your cellar. When I go to Roumier, he makes 3 barrels of Musigny. So by default, this is rare, right? And let's be honest about one thing: the moment you've listed in duty free, you've lost exclusivity. Like they flew like the hornet over my head. And then we debated that. I said, look, you can name this whatever you want. I mean. You can go into watch industry. He said, look, You see Patek Philippe in every airport. Can you buy a Patek Philippe on the airport? Absolutely not. They profile you. Can you buy Romane Conti on airports? To my knowledge, only one. In Heathrow, there's I think one store. But other than that, no. So look, that makes it exclusive. People buy into that. The new generation looks for craftsmanship. They look for exclusivity. So it's an interesting phenomenon.
Okay, I have another question for the participants. From the Le Bernardin is very well known for fish at French elegant style. What food pairing did you like or discover they are related to fish and wine pairing? You are a specialist in this.
What do you mean with that?
I don't know. I repeat the question. Le Bernardin is very well known for fish at French elegant style. What food pairing do you like or discover that are related to fish and wine pairings?
I mean, you've tried my wine pairings, and we've given you actually, there were courses where we gave you 2 or 3 wines with it.
Yes.
We discovered your wife likes Burgundy.
Yes.
When I do wine pairings, when a new dish, this is our protocol. When Eric dish, I try ideally to be with them when they come to the final stages of creating it. Because often in the first week until they train the team with it, they start tweaking the sauces a little bit. And working with Eric is very challenging because the fish itself, he calls it often almost raw or barely touched or lightly cooked. He's very playful in the sauce. So I, for me, look more often onto the sauce rather than onto the protein. I know this is bizarre, but when I come there, I taste first just to try to understand all the flavors and the spices and the sauce, what they use with it. And I know they're gonna tweak in the first 2 weeks and tighten the screws. And I go back and then I come with a tray full of wines. Sometimes I bring also liquor with me just because I don't want to narrow myself. I try also stuff where I think this does not work, I still try it. Like that, you discover things which don't make sense. So I push myself into that. You can pair red wine with fish. That's another thing we do. Obviously, we have 3 meat dishes, but Eric helps me on that. Because look, if you have an 8-course menu with only white wines, yeah, I mean, look, we've tried 8 courses with all champagne, but a glass of red wine is good for the soul. It's good for balance. You might break a certain rule. I like breaking rules since school. We asked once a teacher if cheating is allowed at an exam. He said, yes, it is. Getting caught is not allowed. And I thought it's actually quite an interesting thing. So once you break the rule, you have to make sure it's tight. And again, for me, I don't limit myself on it. The sky is the limit. Of course, what I do is I push on certain pairings, and then I give the client again something where they're comfortable with. You cannot only give them, floor-based wines. You have to give them also something where they are comfortable again. So it's almost like a tango.
In New York, it's the last 5 years, the world of wine is changing. The bars and restaurants and wine bars. I saw many restaurants and wine bars with 100% of their wine list natural, organic, blah. What is your opinion on what is happening now in their places? What is happening in the wine industry? What is your opinion about the natural wines organic wines, biodynamic wines, and what is happening with all of this?
Ooh, this is quite a question, huh?
Yeah.
I have to admit one thing. Before I wrote Wine Simple, I was against natural wine. Or not against is maybe a little bit strong. I was just questioning that movement very, very strong. Because I particularly dislike when wines become volatile, smell like kombucha, or smell like cider.
Mm-hmm.
And this sounds sarcastic, but I really mean that. If you want to drink kombucha, why wouldn't you drink kombucha? It's fine. If you want to drink cider, you drink cider. It's all good. I think also there was a drive, very strong. You know, the more extreme, the more volatile it becomes. Then it was even considered as even better. Now, look, I shifted my opinion a little bit because only a fool doesn't admit to change his mind a little bit. I've tried in the progress, I've interviewed, we wrote a chapter on natural wine. What natural wine has one absolute advantage, he brought an audience into the wine world we never had before. And it made people excited. And look, this is a new movement, and you cannot, it's very easy to say this is all terrible, but life is not that simple typically. So look, there is some absolute stars among they're very consistent or kind of consistent in natural winemaking. We cannot be consistent with natural winemaking. Ultimately, the client decides whether to buy it or not. It's just for me, you know, who I work in a 3-star restaurant, and you have to look also the environment you work with. I work in Midtown Manhattan. If Le Baron would be in Brooklyn, probably natural full gas, right? In Midtown, there's just no way you can run that. Now, I've started that in a very toned and balanced way, just to explore this a little bit. And people look into the glass, this is a funny looking wine. I said, yeah, but look in the pairing. And that's how I bring it on. And it's interesting. And look, I am not a dictator. I believe when you come to a 3-star restaurant, we are in the service industry. We have to cater to people what they want. Look, I have also Screaming Eagle on the list. Now with poached halibut, this is not the perfect pairing. But it's the same on natural wine. If they want that, look, I have some, of course. I cater that. You don't want to say no too much in a restaurant. And I take my ego back. Who cares if I'm right or not? It's irrelevant. So we see that movement. Look, and right now, I taste all the time. I use my girlfriend's example, Catherine, who is not into wine. She's a normal consumer. She doesn't care whether it's natural or not. She cares it's delicious or it's not. So I pick her brain. And it's very refreshing because we sommeliers are not normal. We always look for this or for that, and we look, is 95 better than 96? She says, who cares? It's delicious, it's not. And you know, you have to be aware of that. So I look for natural components, and look, when I was down with Piero, Jean-Marc Rouleau left his aligoté, which one was completely without sulfur, the other one with. It's quite fascinating what it does. And what's interesting is on these wines, what kind of emotional response do you get? You know, which glass, you know, you gravitate to drink, to grab again. And I'm very straightforward that, look, the best bottle of wine is always the one which is finished first, no matter what that is. It's delicious. And some wines, you know, no matter how famous they are, some bottles, you know, they will not, or let me rephrase this. Sometimes you go out with friends, the best wines are always the shared ones. I still remember our great dinner we had. How much wine did we drink? And again, they were just also delicious. But when you go out with your partner, The best bottle is always when it's finished after the appetizer, and you wonder who is drinking with you. And sometimes you have wines which you keep nursing and nursing and nursing, and the bottle does not finish, and people stop drinking even. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I look at that, because look, as sommeliers, we have to observe our clients. If a client is nursing the bottle, I ask, is everything okay with the wine? I check in. We don't like the wine so much. Okay, let me fix that. I want you to be happy.
What type of wines have you in your cellar? What wines do, when you go to the wine store, what you buy?
I am not a moody person, but I'm a very moody drinker. I'm always curious to try something new. There's a lot to be learned on a wine you dislike. There's nothing learned on a great bottle of wine. Of course, it's more enjoyable, but it's nothing learned. So I explore pretty much everything. Now, to answer your question, I have a cellar also here. And I counted it recently because, I had nothing to do. So I bought more wine than I consumed, even though I consumed quite a bit being stuck. And Catherine was complaining that she has to drink every day. But it took her maximum 5 minutes until she came with also a glass. I said, it's okay, listen. So, but I went lately a little bit overboard with Northern Rhone. I like this type of wines a lot. It's a little excessive. I love Old California, like from 1987 and older, before Parker came around and shifted this area.
And it's easier to find before the Parker California wines?
No, but I think just old, when you really go like to Old Ridge, just when you go to the regular Cabernets from the 70s, or when you go to Inglenooks, or when you go to Charles Crooks, there is, how shall I see this? There's this little, it's for lack of a better word, there's this little sexy fruit with it. And it's just it's so seductive. And I have even people, don't compare to this, what California is often today. They're much more balanced. You can put them to French wines or to Bordeaux. You can put them next to it and they will not fall short. It's really fascinating to observe. Again, this is one of it's not a secret anymore, but it was for the longest time a secret. No, I'm quite open. I mean, now I tried many wines also because, I went to a local liquor store and I bought wines from $15 to $30 more at maximum, which is in New York kind of really entry.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you get? It's fun. So, and how much wine do you get? And, sometimes this worked out. Sometimes, was good for making a sauce the next day. But we have no, listen, often people are so hung up. How expensive is this wine? And the more expensive it is, then the more excited they get. Who cares about the price? Right? For us as a sommelier, it's more important. We're the first ones on that wine. And I give you a great example. And I talked about it before already. 15 years ago, I bought a Rouleau Merceau in New York for $70 in the wine store. Now you make a zero behind and now everybody loves it. I discovered in my cellar, I forgot about it, I have some older Thierry Almans. And I looked at the price, I bought them for $35. Now that thing is $500. So, but for us as a sommelier, I look for that. Every idiot can buy $1,000 bottle of wine. You don't have to be great. You look for the cheap one and look through that. And how exciting is that for us, because look, we have a new person who comes into wine, and you cannot give this person $1,000 bottle of wine. You give him a $30, $40 bottle of wine. Try this. This is really exciting.
Wow.
We have, I give you an example which refers more to you. In New York, especially in Midtown, people love Malbec. This development we could not stop. And I have frequently, and again, you can charge whatever you want, people buy Malbec. It's just like some Pellegrino a little bit. And then I got sick and tired of it. And then I put the Malbec for Michelini brothers on, which is very unlike, it's much more refined. Still, people were confused, but they said, this is actually really interesting. And it was also much cheaper. And I thought, there's a beauty into that, because I don't care about the price. I mean, of course, to a degree. But if someone comes to me and said, I want to spend $50 or $100, I start recommending them a $75 bottle of wine. I want to gain their trust. When I work at Le Bernardin, from 100 clients, I maybe have 20% looking into the wine list. For the other 80%, I pick. They don't even give me any number. It's sometimes awkward, but but they trust, and that you have to accomplish. Right? And of course, sometimes you sell people short. If he wants to spend $100, I give him $75. But it's just a question of time until you give him a $150 bottle of wine. And he's very happy, because one thing you never know in this industry, you don't know who is in front of you.
Yes.
And you never know where these people are in 2 years. So keep that in mind. These can be very high executives and very rich people. And they will never forget that you were the only one who treated them nicely and fairly. There's a huge opportunity.
Talking about your team of the people who work with you. You taste wine with them every week. How do you work with them to teach them? You taste wine, I don't know, once a week, twice, once a month. How do you work with them?
That's a very challenging thing for me, because look, I am for lunch in service and for dinner in service, and sometimes lunch goes straight into dinner. So my day, the moment I come to work, I'm very thin stretched. I taste with them, the sommelier who works with me, I tasted them, and for some, if you have some crazy bottles, I leave them and make everyone try quickly during service. Of course, we have together tastings, or of course, I send them over to Europe, to train. Sometimes we meet on the weekends, and everyone brings wines, and then we taste. I do also team outings, where I put both teams together, and we have a theme. And we go through an entire experience with that. So I make sure the team stays very, very, I'm nobody without my team. The team has to be super tight. And my right hand at Le Bernardin works with me for 9 years. So another Austrian woman, but then I have 4 more sommeliers who work with me now for 6 years. They came from the wine bar. The youngest one is just started in November. So again, there's a tradition on that, and I make sure, because if you have a constant change, you're not consistent, and the client realizes this immediately, and we cannot afford that. And it's also good, when when people recognize, I want to sit with Sarah. No, I want to sit with this person. It's just you cater very different things because I cannot be everywhere, and I push them up front because of course people want to talk to me. People want to talk to a pass. No. I come with my sommelier and say, oh, listen, if she tells you this is absolutely great. This is a super wine. So I push them up because they liberate me. And of course I make sure, I tell them, listen, this client likes this type of wine and he doesn't like that. Be careful, he's very critical here. Of course, they're prepared. And then, they come from different cultures, so I maneuver that, I have a Brazilian sommelier, is all the Brazilian clients love her because she's Portuguese. And so on and so on. You want to be able to cater to all sorts of clients.
Aldo, I'm not sure if Aldo Graziani is listening us, but there is some interesting question here. Is how you think or your mind think the wine menu of Le Bernardin, and also to switch your mind to think in the wine menu of your wine bar?
How should I say this? Of course, we get allocations from the traditional wines. And I probably 3 to 4 times a week, I have tasting appointments. Sometimes back on back, right? Where we taste and we look for new wines. And sometimes I ask also for certain wines, which people are surprised. For instance, I asked the producer, I asked one distributor, I want to try Pairings because I knew he had from Untitled Chapter. He had these ones and he said, you care for Pairings? I said, yeah, I want to look into it. I want to experience it. I wanted to know it because if I don't know it, I cannot talk about it. And we did quite a research too onto that. And I pulled the team with me again. Again, they think I'm always crazy. The last couple of years were heavy on Spanish wines, even though we Le Bernardin, a very French-focused restaurant. So I pulled the team with me. They have no choice. So, but then I taste quite a bit. I talk with friends a lot, or we go out on the weekends with friends, and then we exchange ourselves here in New York. The sommelier team is sommeliers are very, very tight together. And yeah, somehow it works out, but it's a little crazy sometimes.
And related the service, I mean, you think in the service or in the wine service for Le Bernardin and the wine bar completely different, or not?
No.
The basis is
day and night. It's like literally day and night. No, the wine bar is a wine bar. That's for me the hardest because that's very close. It's about 30 steps when I leave the door at Le Bernardin and walk over to the wine bar. And it's very difficult, especially when you're in the holiday season. You're on full speed. And I walk into the wine bar, I cannot pull the switch in my brain quick enough and to have to put a different face on. The wine bar is much more, it doesn't really matter if you serve from left or serve from right, it's irrelevant. The client also looks for different wines. But to me, I like that because again, it challenges me. I have to adjust and I have to look for different wines. So, and I can be more playful, I can more explore also more. Also the team, the team is a little bit younger there as well. And they look for these natural wines too. So look, how do you work and adopt that?
excellent. And coming back to Gruner, it's an aromatic variety, and generally we try it in a young and fresh style. How is the evolution related to oak, or the model of evolution of Gruner? Yeah, because we are not custom and probably you with your wines and trying lots of it, you have your opinion on that.
Well, in Austria, you can try Grüne Veltliner. Probably there's nothing older there than 1945, because after World War II, either the Americans or the Russians drank everything. They wiped out everything. So there's not much older wine than there, but and it's not as easy. But I have wines actually from the 70s and from the 80s, and they age incredible. And it's funny. I had last year with a couple of friends from Daniel restaurant, the wine director, and Daniel Jonas, who imports also and is very friendly with most of Burgundian producers. We had a crazy wine afternoon. I mean, we had Coche de Riz, Perrier, and Corton Charlemagne. We had Rouleau, Charme. I mean, we drank sick stuff. And I said, and I brought an Austrian wine with me, because first of all, I wanted to mess around with them. I brought French wine too. But of course they say, yeah, you the Austrian, of course you bring Austrian wine. And I brought a Riesling with it. A Riesling 1990, I believe. I think it was a Cabinet or a Federspiel from Knoll. And they all made fun of me. But again, bear in mind, you know, we are on the absolute pinnacle of white wine making. And one of my friends wanted to have a German Riesling, and that bottle was corked. And then said, okay, now we open the Austrian, guys, you know, screw you, we drink this wine now. And their eyes were just popping up. What is this? Because the wine was just strikingly good. And again, but after having these monuments and iconic wines. So it was quite an experience also for me to see this, because the wine didn't fall short. So they age incredibly well. There's actually Jancis Robinson, who've done a couple of Grüne Veltliner tastings, where they compare even Chardonnays versus Grüne Veltliner. And it goes quite well.
Hi, Aldo.
Aldo is back.
Yes, I am back. My internet is fucked up.
I was worried you drank too much Vivo e Muerto.
Yes, I will drink Vivo Muerto tonight. I have a question about your team, your sommelier team. You talked before in the wine bar, they are young people, and then when they are more adult in terms of knowledge, they go to the La Bernardin. How is the training with them? How do you work with them weekly?
I mean, look, in America, we always say the cream rises to the top. So the moment they start at the wine bar, I follow them with my eyes, right? I look at that and I see how do they integrate, how do they work with the team, how eager, how hungry they are, right? At Le Bernardin, you have to think differently. At the wine bar, look, when someone orders a glass of Chardonnay, you give them a glass of Chardonnay. If someone orders a glass of Malbec, you give them a glass of Malbec. Of course, you can recommend. But at Le Bernardin, you have to think differently. You have to become proactive. The moment you become reactive, you're too late. So when I see this glass already getting empty, I'm already ahead of that and check in. It's a very difficult switch for people. And I tell them, if you become reactive, you will have an awful night, because you're not in control over your station anymore, nor over the client. You have to have control over your tables. You have to be on top of your game. And so, but the moment I see someone shaping up, I start connecting them with the sommeliers from Le Bernardin and put them in a tasting group. Or we train together, service, decantation. We give them the wine lists. So, or we put them up into private events where they work heavy wine events. So our wine auctions, that's when they put them on. And that's when we really see, okay, ready, not ready. And I asked my team, I asked the sommeliers, what do you think? Yeah, not ready.
Okay, you have the private events team, the tasting team, the service team, and amazing. It's amazing. And you taste wines every week together?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, we taste wine all the time.
All the time.
We have the cluster then, and we use that. So we taste wine all the time. There is no day where we don't taste. And sometimes, you know, if we have a crazy bottle, there's something left over. I mean, they're fighting to work certain events. They're fighting over that.
And you push them to travel to the travel.
Well, let me put it in a different light. You know, traveling often is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned one thing. Look, I mean, I'm 49 years young. You know, sometimes, you know, I work with 29-year-old people or 28-year-old people, and that's great. But in today's world, you have to live that what you ask them to do. So I travel a fair bit in wine regions, or do this and do that, push myself, and right. So, you know, I just don't, you know, bless water and drink wine. I do what I ask them to do as well. So you live it in front of them, so they see. So all of a sudden, you know, I don't have to send them. They come to me and said, I want to go. Do you see what I mean? It's a very different incentive.
Yes. I have a question for the participants. What do you think about making wine with native yeast and commercial yeast? Is it really better native yeast?
Yes. I mean, our Grüne Veltliners are made with native yeast. The problem is you're working with nature, and now Austria is not as secure. I talk to Piero in Chisa all the time, because in Patagonia, it says working biodynamically is very easy. You don't have a fungus pressure. In Austria, we have that. So you have to be really careful there. But, and I've argued this in a sommelier group, because yes, we work with spontaneous yeast, but you work with nature. Nature does not cooperate with you. You work with nature. What do you get? And I said, look, in 2014, one barrel got stuck in fermentation. And which is typically no problem, because it will restart in the spring and finish its fermentation. Not that one. So, and the whole world is not looking for Grüne Veltliner with 30 grams of residue sugar. And then they said, so what did you do? And I said, well, look, at that stadium, you just open the spout and wait until the barrel is empty. And I said, look, then you go to your bank account, withdraw a couple of €1,000 and throw it down the drain too. And then I ask you how you feel about spontaneous versus inoculated yeast. It's a tricky thing, you know. Yeast is a very interesting topic, but I think the winemaking is much more complicated than only talking about that. You want to have a backup plan, because it's too expensive. Yeah. And the problem also in the wine world is, the wine world is a world where everybody has passion, and there's very few millionaires in that game. So we are passion centric.
What is the relation between Grüne Veltliner and oak barrels?
It's not that strong. We use oak, but only all used oak, so 5 times to 6 times to 10-year-old oak barrels. In the one vineyard, in the Kamptal, some of them play with 5% oak, but no more than that, because oak takes the character away. Grüne Veltliner and oak is a little tricky topic. Mm-hmm. It's good for evaporation, but not for the oak flavor. That wine will collapse.
Okay. Okay, somebody has a question? Mati, Vale, Paz?
We are okay, Aldo. If any other doesn't have any more questions, you can finish both with any topic you want to talk about it.
And you can go to drink of Vivo o Muerto.
I have actually 2 wines in front of me today, strangely enough.
I think Paz has a question. So Monica, if you can put the microphone to Paz. Paz is just asking how you make your book, why and how you make your book.
Okay, that's a tricky topic. Let me grab. This is sorry. Yeah, this is Wine Simple. I still owe Aldo a copy, but nobody's flying to Argentina right now, so it's difficult. Look, I am a sommelier. I'm not a writer. I barely speak English. But the idea came around was I worked the floor at Le Bernardin, but I worked at the wine bar. And I've noticed all these young people, often, you know, it's funny. You see when people come to your restaurant and they open a wine list and you can see they're completely overwhelmed. And they have a hard time to order a glass of Sauvignon Blanc. Now, I'm on the other side of the spectrum and I have to work with these victims. But wine should be fun, right? Look, try this. And all of a sudden, so for me, I'm a completely damaged sommelier, right? So someone wants to try a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, just to use this example. And I come maybe around and tell her, maybe you want to try this Viura. Right? Of course, what is Viura? But you have to work with these people first, you know, make them comfortable. And that's when I thought, look, I put personal stories and take people the fear away, take people the intimidation away. It's like me going to a computer store. After the second sentence, I've lost them. Right? Can you speak in English to me, in regular English, so I'll understand you, right? Or for instance, you know Scott, Aldo.
Yes.
Which we met. He used to be my attorney. And you know, attorneys, they have also this lawyer language. It's like, can you speak in normal English to me so I understand you, because you don't make any sense to me, right? So we have to communicate in a way so they get you. And so I took people, I take them by the hand and put them on a journey to take them the fear away, open up your mind and just taste. So if Aldo Graziani says Vivo o Muerto is the greatest Malbec, that's good for him. But maybe you like something very, very different. And you know what? That's okay. Eventually, you know, you evolve. And that's kind of the idea. And not being stuck only to Pinot Grigio or not being stuck only to Sauvignon Blanc. Just try also thinking every Chardonnay is creamy or buttery. Send them on a journey. Because what is the biggest problem? We misinvest. We buy a wine which we really don't like. Great. This is life, you know. Who loved the first oyster? Not many people, especially not for me from Austria. We don't have an ocean. But look, now I love it. It took me a while to get onto this. You evolve with that. And this is kind of, you give also people a hand. Also, some silly examples, you know, how do you organize a home tasting? How do you learn more? How do you decant? And the idea is to book also. Now, I know this is politically incorrect, but I try not to dismiss right now the female audience here. I have a lot of female clients at the wine bar. And I learned they like a good glass of wine, but they don't want to make a science out of it. So when they open the book here on a random page, within 10 seconds, they can learn something and put it away. They don't have to read like from Francis Robinson, the Oxford Companion, which for me, I love, but no normal person reads that. Right? So it's just to challenge. So you give them in sound bites the information. And it was an instant success here because it's very playful. I put jokes in there too, just to take them people the fear away. And look, tell them also, look, Aldo started out with Bacardi Coke. I didn't like wine at first. Of course, Coke is sweet, it's sugar, right? The alcohol gave a little, the Bacardi gave the kick. Of course, in today's world, looking back, this is unimaginable. But just, we started from zero at one point. And the more people we get onto the wine, getting interested in wine, the better it is. And that's what this is about. So it talks from, because many books are written from professionals to professionals. Wine Simple is a book where it's the idea from a professional to a non-professional and taking the fear away. And give almost a slight opinion with it.
Excellent explanation. Thank you, Aldo.
So,
well, thank you both very much. Thank you, Aldo Graziani, the Argentinian one.
Aldo y Aldo.
Yeah.
It should be a weekly feature, huh?
And
Aldo,
thank you, of course.
Your talk was a journey. Thank you very much. We enjoy a lot, and thank you for your time.
I'm very passionate about Argentina. I love it.
Yes, we know, and we are very happy you love Argentina.
No, it's every time I go there, it's I'm just an absolute. I talk to Paz because I've been actually all over. The only thing what I missed was the southern part of Patagonia. And this year we went down there. We went to El Chaltén. Of course, we went to Perito Moreno. We didn't make it to Ushuaia or to Bariloche. But this will come because for us it's easy, It's quite a destination, but Argentina is fun. And for Argentines, it's always funny, I hope I'm not too direct. But one thing, and I think how often was I in Argentina? 5-6 times. Everyone says, we're so far away from anything. I said, that's great. That's why we come. So, you should own. It's a phenomenal country, right? Of course it has its problems, but guess what? America has its problems too. Just look at it right now. So everyone has problems, and without problems, we will not survive. We would not survive the dinosaurs, and you've plenty down in Patagonia of those. So this is normal. So, but Argentina is great. So only
thank you, Aldo. Thank you very much it was a very nice talk because we can talk about Gruner, but also your work in top restaurants in New York, and it's nice to have the point of view of a sommelier producing wine, because most of the master classes we have until now were mainly for producers, and it's nice to have your both point of view. So,
you had Pedro Parra on, am I mistaken?
Yeah, last week.
Oh, right, I saw, yeah. That's a cool guy, huh?
Yeah.
Intense.
Yeah.
But he's from the other side of the Andes.
Yeah, in both.
Other side of the Andes, yes.
Yeah.
Both. Yesterday I had an interview with him, 2 hours also.
Thank you for your time again, both Aldos, and thank you all the attendants of the association and the producers that were joining us. So good night for.
We had from Norton, the team from Norton on, right?
Yeah, there was some people. Is there Fernando Puliti and I think some of them that are starting to produce still wines and also sparkling from Gruner. So it's
I've never tried these wines. I have to shamefully admit.
We will talk with them to send you or to obtain some bottle.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And
excellent.
for for all people, we see next week with another masterclass. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.